American homeowners spend $340 million every spring planting flowers that quietly threaten the lives inside their homes. The average emergency vet visit from garden plant poisoning runs $1,200 to $2,800, and most pet owners never saw it coming because the plant looked absolutely beautiful. If you are in your 50s or 60s and you have spent decades building a garden you are proud of, this video may be the most important one you watch this season. 9 plants. 9 safer swaps. 0 guesswork. And 1 plant on this list, stay for it, poisons through the water it sits in. Not contact, not ingestion. The water alone. Welcome to Plantier Lab, where smart growers discover plant ideas that actually pay off. Today we are breaking down 9 garden plants most American families grow without knowing their true toxicity risk, and every single danger comes with a proven safer swap. Stay past the halfway point, because the water poisoning reveal changes how you will look at every flower arrangement in your home forever. Most gardeners make one dangerous assumption. If a plant is sold at a nursery, it must be safe. That assumption costs American families over $1 billion in veterinary and medical costs every single year. The truth is that nursery tags list bloom time, sun requirements, and water needs. But they almost never list toxicity risks. Plant scientists have observed that the majority of common ornamental plants sold across American garden centers contain compounds ranging from mild irritants to substances capable of causing cardiac arrest in small animals within hours. In Zone 6 through Zone 8, the Northeast, Midwest, and Pacific Northwest. Many of the 9 plants in this video are considered standard garden choices. That is exactly why this list matters. If you have been gardening for 20 or 30 years and nobody handed you this information, that is not your failure. It was simply never passed on. Now it will be. Lily of the Valley is arguably the most deceptive plant on this entire list. It looks like a wedding flower, it smells like a luxury perfume, and it contains over 30 cardiac glycosides, compounds that disrupt the electrical signaling of the heart in both animals and humans. Horticulturalists and toxicologists consistently rank it among the top 5 most dangerous ornamental plants grown in American gardens. In USDA zones 3 through 8, which covers most of the Northeast and Midwest, it naturalizes freely, spreading quietly beneath trees and along shaded borders where dogs love to explore. The specific danger is not just touching or chewing the plant. Every part is toxic: the leaves, the stems, the berries, and the roots. Even the soil around an established patch carries risk after years of leaf drop. And then there is the fact most growers never hear, which is coming in the next 60 seconds. Here is the detail that stops most people cold. And this is the moment teased at the very start of this video, when Lily of the Valley is cut and placed in a vase. The water itself becomes toxic. Documented in horticultural toxicology records, animals and small children who drink vase water containing Lily of the Valley stems have experienced cardiac symptoms requiring emergency care. The flower does not need to be eaten. The water does it alone. A $1,200 emergency vet visit from a flower arrangement is a reality American pet owners face every spring. The safe swap is creeping thyme, Thymus serpulum, which covers the same shaded borders beautifully, blooms in soft pink and purple, is completely non-toxic to pets and children, and in Zone 4 through Zone 8 establishes in one season for under $30. Same visual beauty, 0 cardiac risk. That is the only trade worth making. Autumn Crocus is the plant on this list most likely to cause a real emergency, not because it is the most toxic per gram, but because it is the most frequently misidentified. It blooms in September and October on bare stems with no leaves, producing soft purple flowers that look strikingly similar to the completely harmless spring crocus. Most gardeners know well that visual similarity is the danger. Colchicum autumnale contains colchicine, a compound that disrupts cell division at a biological level. Plant scientists have documented that colchicine poisoning causes progressive multi-organ failure, affecting the kidneys, liver, bone marrow, and heart, with symptoms that can take 2 to 3 days to become fully visible. In USDA zones 4 through 9, Autumn Crocus naturalizes in garden beds and lawn edges without announcement. Most families growing it have no idea what it is. They bought it at a garden sale. They planted it because it was pretty, and in a garden shared with pets or grandchildren, that quiet decision carries real consequences. A grandmother in Zone 6, Pennsylvania spent 3 seasons growing what she believed were decorative crocuses along her front walk. Her 4-year-old granddaughter picked one during an October visit, put it to her mouth, and within hours the family was in an emergency room. The plant was Autumn Crocus. The grandmother had never been told. That story repeats across America every single fall, and it is preventable with one simple substitution. The safe swap is Crocus vernus, true spring crocus, which produces nearly identical purple and white blooms, is completely non-toxic to children and pets, and thrives in zones 3 through 8. A pack of 25 spring crocus bulbs costs under $15 at most American garden centers. The visual result is identical. The risk drops to 0. If Autumn Crocus is in your garden right now, and you are not certain which crocus you actually planted, remove it this season. The safer version delivers everything you wanted from it. Daffodils are planted in over 60 million American gardens. They signal spring. They feel safe. And almost nobody who plants them knows that the bulb underground is a concentrated source of lecherine, an alkaloid that causes severe vomiting, cardiac arrhythmia, and in documented cases, convulsions in both dogs and cats. Horticulturalists note that all parts of the daffodil carry toxicity. The sap, the stems, the flowers, but the bulb carries the highest concentration by far. The specific problem in gardens shared with dogs is digging behavior. A dog that discovers a freshly planted or frost-heaved daffodil bulb and chews it has consumed the most toxic portion of the plant. In USDA zones 3 through 8, daffodils are planted every autumn, tens of millions of bulbs going into soil where dogs exercise daily. The average lecherine poisoning vet visit runs $1,400 to $2,200, depending on how quickly the animal is treated. Most owners do not connect the symptoms to the garden until a veterinarian asks the right question. The safe swap for daffodil is snapdragon, Antirrhinum majus, and the practical case for it is straightforward. Snapdragons produce tall, densely bloomed spikes in every color from deep burgundy to pale yellow that visually fill the same spring border role a daffodil patch would. They are listed as non-toxic to dogs, cats, and horses by the ASPCA. In zones 7 through 11, they overwinter. In zones 3 through 6, they perform as strong cool season annuals, planted in April for a May to June bloom window. A flat of snapdragon transplants at most American garden centers runs $12 to $18, comparable to a bag of daffodil bulbs. The contrast story is this. Most growers choose the bulb because it is traditional, then spend $1,600 at an emergency vet because the dog found it before spring arrived. Smart growers choose snapdragon, keep the color, and never open that bill. The honest limitation is that snapdragons are annuals in cold zones. Replanting is required. That is the trade. For a pet-safe garden, it is the right one. Larkspur is one of the most visually stunning plants in any summer garden, tall, dramatic, available in deep purple to pale blue, and it is one of the fastest-acting toxic plants on this list. The alkaloids in Delphinium consolida, primarily delphinine and aegacin, act on the nervous system, causing progressive muscle paralysis that can move from first symptoms to lethal outcome in as little as 6 hours. There is no antidote. Veterinary treatment is purely supportive. Manage the symptoms and hope the animal system clears the compound before shutdown occurs. In the western United States, California, Oregon, and throughout the mountain states in zones 2 through 11, larkspur grows wild, along roadsides, and naturalizes into garden edges without being planted. Livestock losses from wild larkspur are documented every grazing season by range management authorities. For domestic gardens, the risk concentrates in smaller animals, dogs, cats, rabbits, where even a modest ingestion of leaves or seeds carries real danger. The 6-har window is not a cushion, it is a countdown. The safe swap for Larkspur is salvia, specifically Salvia nemorosa, and the visual argument for it is strong. Salvia produces the same tall vertical purple spikes that make Larkspur desirable in a summer border. Blooms from June through September in zones 4 through 9, and is classified as non-toxic to dogs, cats, and humans by every major horticultural authority. It also attracts pollinators, repels aphids, and requires significantly less water than Larkspur, once established, which in drought-prone western states means lower maintenance and lower cost over time. A 3-pack of salvia transplants at American garden centers runs $10 to $14. The contrast is direct. Larkspur gives you the height and the color, but delivers a 6-har no antidote risk to every animal in the garden. Salvia gives you the same height and the same color, and gives you nothing to fear. If you are in your 50s or 60s, and you have been planting Larkspur for years, without incident, the honest truth is that you were fortunate, not protected. Salvia removes the gamble entirely. Mountain laurel is the state flower of Pennsylvania and Connecticut. It grows wild across the Appalachian Range and is planted in millions of residential gardens from Zone 4 through Zone 9 as a reliable native evergreen shrub. Most gardeners who plant it consider it a responsible, natural choice. What they are rarely told is that every part of Culmia latifolia, the leaves, the stems, the nectar, and the pollen, contains grayanotoxin. This compound is the same substance responsible for what historical records call mad honey disease, a poisoning documented when bees collect nectar from laurel flowers and transfer grayanotoxin to honey. In animals and humans, grayanotoxin disrupts sodium channel function in cardiac and nerve cells, causing a cascading failure that begins with excessive salivation and weakness and progresses to low blood pressure, dangerously slow heart rate, and in severe cases, cardiac shutdown. Horticulturalists who study landscape plant toxicity consistently place mountain laurel among the highest risk ornamental shrubs in Eastern American gardens, precisely because its size and permanence mean animals and children interact with it across years, not just a single season. The safe swap for mountain laurel is Forsythia ex intermedia, and it earns that position on every practical measure. Forsythia is fully non-toxic to dogs, cats, and children. It grows from Zone 4 through Zone 9 across the same range where mountain laurel thrives. It establishes faster, reaching full hedge size in 3 to 4 years compared to laurel's slower growth, and produces a dramatic display of bright yellow blooms every spring before the leaves even emerge, giving it one of the strongest seasonal impact moments of any American garden shrub. A 3-gallon Forsythia from a garden center runs $18 to $35. Mountain laurel of comparable size costs $40 to $80 and arrives carrying a toxicity profile most buyers are never shown. The contrast story writes itself. One shrub spends decades quietly threatening every animal and small child that plays near it. The other spends decades putting on a spring show and asking nothing dangerous in return. In your 50s and 60s, rebuilding a foundation planting around Forsythia is one of the highest value garden decisions available. Beautiful, permanent, and finally safe. You are exactly halfway through this list, and the 4 plants still coming are the ones most likely already in your garden right now. Hyacinth, Tulip, Wisteria, Hydrangea, 4 plants that appear in more American garden beds than almost any others on this list, and each one carries a specific threat most growers have never been told. Before we continue, right now, drop your state in the comments. Because your USDA zone completely changes, which of these 4 represents the highest risk in your specific garden? If you are in your 50s or 60s and you have spent seasons building a garden you love, this second half of the video is built specifically for you, because the plants coming up are not rare specimens from specialty nurseries. They are the ones sitting in your garden beds this season, and the safer swaps for each one are just as beautiful, just as available. and in most cases, less expensive than what they are replacing. 4 plants, 4 swaps, stay with it. Hyacinth is one of the most fragrant and visually commanding spring bulbs in American gardens, and the bulb sitting 2 inches underground is loaded with calcium oxalate crystals. These microscopic needle-like structures cause immediate and severe chemical burns on contact with any soft tissue, the mouth, the tongue, the throat, and the digestive lining. Horticulturalists note that the bulb carries significantly higher crystal concentration than the leaves or flowers, making a dog that digs and chews a hyacinth bulb a candidate for serious oral injury, requiring immediate veterinary attention. In zones 4 through 8, the Northeast, Mid-Atlantic, and Midwest, hyacinth bulbs are planted every fall across millions of residential garden beds. Many of those beds are shared with dogs who dig freely. The average calcium oxalate injury vet visit runs $800 to $1,500, depending on severity and how quickly treatment begins. The damage from a chewed hyacinth bulb is not subtle. Swelling, drooling, pawing at the mouth, and refusal to eat are the immediate signs. The bulb responsible is underground and invisible to most owners at the moment their pet finds it. His safe swap for hyacinth is Catmint Nepeta X Fascini, and it addresses every practical concern the hyacinth replacement requires. Catmint produces cascading mounds of soft lavender, blue blooms from May through September, reblooms if cut back after the first flush, and fills a border with the same fragrant, color-rich presence that makes hyacinth desirable in spring beds. It is completely non-toxic to dogs, cats, and children. It thrives in zones 3 through 8, requires minimal water once established, and naturally repels aphids. An added practical benefit most borders gain for free. A 1-gallon catmint from an American garden center costs $8 to $14. It spreads gently over seasons, building a fuller border each year without requiring annual replanting. The contrast is clear. Hyacinth asks you to put a calcium oxalate weapon underground every fall, near a dog that digs. Catmint asks you to plant once and walk away. Same fragrance category, same border presence, same color range. The honest limitation is that catmint does not produce the same dense, upright spike form. It mounds and cascades rather than standing vertical. For most borders, that is a difference you stop noticing after the first bloom. Tulips are planted in approximately 80 million American garden beds every autumn, which makes them the most widely distributed toxic bulb on this entire list. The compound responsible is tulipicide, a concentrated most heavily in the bulb and to a lesser degree in the pollen and sap. For humans who handle tulip bulbs without gloves repeatedly over seasons. Tulipicide causes a documented occupational skin condition called tulip fingers, a progressive contact dermatitis causing dry cracking skin, and in some cases nail damage. Dutch bulb workers coined that name after generations of commercial handling without protection. For pets, the danger shifts to ingestion. Dogs that dig and chew tulip bulbs experience vomiting, hypersalivation, depression, and in larger quantities, cardiac abnormalities. Horticulturalists consistently classify the tulip bulb as significantly more toxic than the flower or leaf, meaning the autumn planting season, when bulbs sit exposed before going into the ground, is the highest risk window for dogs in gardens. In zones 3 through 8, that window is October and November, when dogs are still exercising outdoors daily near freshly worked garden beds. The safe swap for tulip is marigold, specifically Taget's patchoula, the French marigold, and its practical case goes beyond simple color replacement. Marigolds are classified as non-toxic to dogs, cats, and humans by the ASPCA. They bloom from late spring through the first frost in every USDA zone across America, providing a longer seasonal display than tulips, which peak for 2 to 3 weeks and then go dormant. Marigolds also produce natural compounds in their root system, specifically thiophene, that repel soil nematodes and deter aphids, making them a functional garden tool as well as a visual one. A 6-pack of marigold transplants at any American garden center costs $4 to $8. A bag of 25 tulip bulbs costs $18 to $30, and arrives carrying Tulipicide A into a garden where dogs dig. The specificity detail most guides omit. French marigolds suppress whitefly populations around nearby vegetables more effectively than most chemical sprays when planted as a border. A $6 flat, doing work that a $25 bottle of pesticide cannot replicate. That is the hidden gem inside this swap. The color, the season length, the pest protection, and the zero pet risk. Marigold earns its place on every single measure. Wisteria is one of the most photographed garden plants in America. The cascading purple bloom clouds that cover pergolas and fences every spring appear in every home and garden magazine. What those photographs never show is what comes after the blooms. Wisteria sinensis produces large, velvety seed pods that hang through summer and autumn, containing seeds loaded with Wisteria glycoside, a compound that causes severe nausea, vomiting, and in documented cases of larger ingestion in dogs, collapse requiring emergency hospitalization. Horticulturalists note that the seeds carry the highest toxin concentration, but the bark, leaves, and flowers also contain toxic compounds at lower levels. The second problem with Wisteria is structural. Its root system is documented to penetrate foundations, crack retaining walls, and collapse wooden pergola structures over time as vine weight accumulates across decades. In zones 5 through 9, Chinese Wisteria naturalizes aggressively and is classified as invasive in multiple southeastern states. A plant that is simultaneously toxic to pets, structurally damaging to property, and legally invasive in portions of your own region is not a garden asset, regardless of how beautiful it looks for 3 weeks every May. The safe swap for Wisteria is native trumpet honeysuckle, Lonicera sempervirens, and the practical argument for it is overwhelming. Lonicera sempervirens is listed as non-toxic to dogs and cats. It is a native North American species, not invasive, and it attracts hummingbirds and native pollinators across its entire bloom season from spring through early fall. It covers fences, pergolas, and trellises with the same dense vine structure that makes Wisteria architecturally desirable, without the root system that cracks foundations or the seed pods that poison the animals below. It grows in zones 4 through 9 and establishes in its first season, reaching full fence coverage in 2 to 3 years. A 1-gallon trumpet honeysuckle at American garden centers runs $12 to $25, comparable to a young Wisteria start. The hidden gem in this swap, Lonicera sempervirens, produces tubular flowers specifically shaped for hummingbird feeding, meaning a properly placed vine turns a fence into a wildlife station that operates all season without intervention. One plant, one purchase. A fence covered in blooms, birds on the wing, and no emergency vet visits waiting at the end of autumn. Hydrangea macrophylla is the most commonly planted flowering shrub in American residential gardens, and it is the plant on this list that most surprises people when they learn it carries real toxicity risk. Every part of the hydrangea plant, the leaves, the flowers, the buds, and the bark, contains cyanogenic glycosides. These compounds are converted in the body to hydrogen cyanide after ingestion, causing vomiting, lethargy, diarrhea, and in cases of significant ingestion, cardiac issues and respiratory distress. Horticulturalists studying companion planting and landscape safety consistently flag hydrangea as a moderate to high toxicity risk for dogs and cats, particularly because the shrub grows at ground level and is accessible to animals year-round, not just during a brief bulb window or a specific season. In zones 5 through 9, established hydrangea shrubs can reach 5 feet tall and wide, producing large quantities of accessible foliage from spring through autumn. A dog that strips leaves from an established hydrangea over a summer afternoon has consumed a meaningful quantity of cyanogenic material. The average treatment cost for hydrangea poisoning in dogs runs $900 to $1,800, depending on ingestion quantity and treatment speed. The safe swap for hydrangea is viburnum, specifically Viburnum opulus, or Viburnum dentatum. And the case for it is not just safety, it is performance. Viburnum produces white lace-cap flower clusters in spring that carry the same visual weight as Hydrangea mopheads. In autumn, it produces red and orange berry clusters that Hydrangea never delivers, giving it 4-season garden presence that the Hydrangea cannot match. It is listed as non-toxic to dogs and cats. It supports native birds and pollinators across its berry and bloom seasons. It grows in zones 3 through 8, tolerates drought once established, and requires significantly less supplemental watering than Hydrangea in dry summer conditions. A 3-gallon viburnum from an American nursery runs $25 to $45, in the same range as established Hydrangea. The one-liner that matters here: a plant that poisons your dog while sitting in your front yard is not a garden asset. It is a liability with blooms. Viburnum removes the liability, keeps the blooms, adds the berries, extends the season, and in a garden you have spent years building for your family. That trade is the only rational one. This is the 9th plant, and the 9th safer choice. We are not ending here. 3 facts most garden safety guides never include. First, composting toxic bulbs does not neutralize them. Daffodil, hyacinth, and tulip bulbs added to a home compost pile retain their toxic compounds during decomposition. Pets that access compost bins, which many do, can be exposed to concentrated toxic material in a form with no visual warning. Bag them and bin them instead. Second, cutting garden flowers changes their toxicity window. Lily of the Valley cut stems leach glycosides into vase water within 30 minutes of cutting. The water becomes toxic before the stems show any visible deterioration. If children or pets have access to floral arrangements in your home, this is the oversight most households carry without knowing. Third, mulch from toxic shrub. Trimmings carries residual risk. Mountain laurel clippings, used as garden mulch, retain grayanotoxin for weeks after cutting. Dogs that mouth or chew dried plant debris in mulched beds are exposed to the same compound in a more concentrated, dried form. These 3 details do not appear on nursery tags. They rarely appear in garden safety articles. And for a household with pets or grandchildren, they are the 3 most practically important facts on this entire list. Here is your specific action path based on your situation. If you are in the Northeast or Midwest in zones 4 through 6 and you have pets or grandchildren, your removal priority is this exact order: Lily of the Valley first, Autumn Crocus second, Hyacinth bulbs third. These 3 dominate that region and carry the highest documented exposure rate in those zones. If you are in the Appalachian corridor or southeast in zones 6 through 8, Mountain Laurel is your first removal priority. It is the largest plant on this list, the most permanent, and the one most homeowners have never questioned. If you are in the western states, in zones 7 through 11, Larkspur naturalization is your primary audit task. Walk your garden edge and property line before the next growing season. If you have pets and your budget for replacements is under $50, start with catmint for hyacinth, marigold for tulip, and salvia for larkspur. All 3 combined cost under $40 at any American garden center and replace 3 of the 9 dangers immediately. If your goal is a permanent foundation planting for a family property, Forsythia and Viburnum are the 2 highest value long-term investments on the safe swap list. Both are permanent, both require one purchase, both deliver decades of safe, beautiful garden presence. A garden is not just a collection of plants. For most people who have spent decades building one, it is a record of seasons, a place where family has gathered, and something they want to be genuinely safe for every person and every animal inside it. The 9 plants covered in this video are not rare imports or exotic species. They are the ones that have been sold at every garden center across America. For generations, beautiful, trusted, and almost never honestly labeled. Knowing what they carry does not mean starting over. It means making one swap at a time, season by season, until the garden you have built is as safe as it is beautiful. That is what this video was built for. Hit the like button right now, because every person who sees this in their feed is one more household where this information lands before an emergency does. Drop your state in the comments and tell us which plant from this list is currently in your garden. And if there is someone in your life, a neighbor, a family member, a friend with a new dog or grandchildren visiting this summer, send them this video right now. One share from you today could prevent a $2,000 emergency vet visit for someone who simply never knew. You just received zone, accurate, dollar-grounded research, base plant safety information, covering 9 toxic plants, 9 proven safe swaps, 3 overlooked bonus facts, and a zone-specific removal priority framework. In one place, most channels never put this level of specificity together. That is what every Planter Lab video delivers. Subscribe now and turn on the bell. The next one is already coming, every week. New content built specifically for smart growers who want real results, zone-aware, dollar-grounded, and built for your actual life. If you are in your 50s or 60s, and you have spent enough seasons making decisions you were never properly warned about, this channel was built for you. The information that should have been on those nursery tags, the zone data, the dollar reality, the safer alternatives. That is what you will find here every single week. Subscribe, turn on the bell. And thank you for watching Planter Lab, where smart growers discover plant ideas that actually pay off.